the terrifying and unbelievable story of King Nimrod, a dark ruler who claimed to be the god of creation, a merciless king who dared to challenge God, the tyrant who launched Prophet Abraham into a fire using a giant catapult, the most ruthless ruler the world has ever seen, a man who reigned for 400 years and was eventually destroyed by a tiny, crippled fly. Welcome to the cursed tale of King Nimrod, the man doomed to the flames of hell. So, who was Nimrod, really? He was the king of a vast and powerful empire. He openly declared himself a god, demanding worship from his people. He glorified celestial bodies, treating the stars and planets as divine. Originally, Nimrod was known as a fair and merciful leader, ruler of the Kadani tribe. His people worshipped stars and idols. But as his kingdom grew larger, so did his pride. He built statues of himself and forced people to bow to them. Some believe the name Nimrod comes from the Hebrew word marid, which means to rebel. And in Jewish scripture, Simrad in Shiroshim, his name has come to symbolize rebellion against God. While his name doesn't appear directly in the Quran, most scholars agree that the arrogant ruler mentioned in Surah al-Baqarah, the one who argued with Prophet Abraham, was Nimrod. According to Islamic sources, his real name was Naram-Sin, and he ruled Babylon with a bloody iron fist. It's said that he was born during the time of Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, and that he was among the first rulers to ever declare, "I am God." After founding the city of Babylon, he turned into a brutal tyrant. Historical sources trace his bloodline back to Ham, the son of Noah, and many believe that Ham's descendants became the earliest warlords, building empires and controlling the fate of humanity. Some even credit them with founding ancient nations like Egypt, Libya, Arabia, and India. Nimrod, of the same lineage, was also said to have founded Nineveh, Calah, and Babylon. His rule began in the land of Shinar, including Babylon, Uruk, Akkad, and the land of the Chaldeans. What made Nimrod so dangerous? He was a dark, powerful figure, perhaps the world's first true imperialist. He launched military campaigns into southern Anatolia and northern Mesopotamia, and according to ancient tablets, he conquered 17 kingdoms in the region. Religious texts describe him as the man who threw Abraham into fire and encouraged all people to rebel against God. In Jewish tradition, Nimrod is portrayed as a cunning astrologer and an idol worshiper, a killer of innocent babies, and the founder of great cities. Some accounts even claim he could command wild beasts. Within his society, Nimrod was worshipped as a living god, while his wife, Semiramis, was treated like a divine queen. He ruled over massive parts of the earth, but his pride, arrogance, and ignorance led him to declare himself a deity. And in doing so, he flooded the land around Urfa with idol worship and corruption. When we talk about the cruelest rulers in history, Nimrod's name always comes first. Pharaoh came after him, but Nimrod was the original. It's believed that his reign lasted around 400 years, and though his name isn't directly mentioned in the Quran, his arrogant nature and his battle with Prophet Abraham are described in 91 verses. Many also believe that the verses about Abraham being punished and thrown into the fire are indirect references to Nimrod. The people of Nimrod. In Nimrod's society, idol worship was a way of life. They believed these statues could eat, drink, and even speak. They prayed to them for food, for healing, even for forgiveness. They saw their idols as both creators and destroyers. There was no belief in an afterlife. They placed great importance on celestial objects, especially the sun, which they considered the highest of all. The people had countless idols and defended them fiercely. They viewed those who didn't believe in the idols as enemies and fought hard to prove their so-called superiority. Temples were built to house these idols, decorated with precision, and used not just for worship, but for legal matters and public affairs. Tradition was the strongest social force in Nimrod's kingdom. If someone dared to question those traditions, they were punished harshly by exile, stoning, or even being thrown into fire. The society became one where no thought, no belief, and no idea outside their own faith was tolerated. The massacre of baby boys. To understand the mission of Prophet Abraham, we first need to look at the people he was sent to guide. We believe Prophet Muhammad lived about 4,000 years after Abraham. And if we go back 4,000 years from today, we might imagine Abraham's time as a primitive tribal society. But that would be a major misunderstanding. Between 2,500 and 1,500 BCE, civilizations in Mesopotamia were surprisingly advanced, especially in science and technology. The Sumerians had already invented writing and influenced the cultures around them. Babylon, Sumer, Akkad, Assyria, they all called Mesopotamia their home. This region was known as the Land of Babylon. It was during this time that Nimrod ruled with tyranny. One night Nimrod had a disturbing dream. He saw a bright new star rising, outshining both the moon and the sun. Terrified, he called his priests and astrologers to interpret the vision. Their answer shook him. A boy would soon be born in his land. A boy who would destroy his kingdom and bring a new religion to the people. Paralyzed by fear, Nimrod ordered the mass murder of all newborn baby boys. He banished all the men from the city, making sure no one could be with their wives. And that very night, without a shred of remorse, he ordered every male child to be killed. But there was one exception, Azar, whom Nimrod trusted. He allowed Azar to stay in the city, but only if he promised not to see his wife. Azar broke that promise. He secretly visited his wife, who later became pregnant. To protect her, Azar hid her in a cave outside the city. And it was there, in that hidden cave, that Prophet Abraham was born, surrounded by a mysterious divine light. The birth of a Prophet Abraham was born in the land east of Babylon, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. He was described as of average height, with hazel eyes, a radiant face, and an open, noble forehead. According to tradition, he looked the most like the Prophet Muhammad. He was known as Khalilullah, the friend of God. He was also called Abu al-Anbiya, the father of prophets. From his son Ishmael came Prophet Muhammad, and from his son Isaac came the prophets of Bani Israel. His wife Hagar was the mother of Ishmael, and Sarah, Isaac's mother, is honored as one of our ancestral mothers. The faith of Abraham. The religion of Prophet Abraham was called Hanif, a path of pure monotheism, and he is known as one of the earliest to follow the way of Islam. He was given 10 sacred scrolls, known as the Suhuf. Abraham was sent as a prophet to the Chaldean tribe, the very people ruled by Nimrod. But as Nimrod expanded his empire and gained victory after victory, his arrogance only grew stronger. Eventually, he demanded absolute obedience. He ruled his people with cruelty beyond imagination. So God sent Abraham as a prophet to guide Nimrod and his nation back to the truth. But they were too proud, too stubborn, too corrupted by their egos. They refused to believe. The Chaldeans had a tradition. Once a year, they held a festival. On that day, Abraham's father, Azar, invited him to join the celebration. Abraham politely declined, saying he wasn't feeling well. But instead of staying home, he went straight to the temple of idols. There he saw rows of statues made from silver, copper, and wood. They had been dressed, decorated, and placed on display. Offerings of food were set before them, as if the statues could eat. The biggest idol sat on a golden throne. It wore a crown and golden robes. It was treated like a king, a god. Abraham looked around and then took a bold step. With a mighty swing of an axe, he shattered all the idols, except for the largest one. He left the big one standing and gently placed the axe on its shoulder. Later that evening, the people returned from the festival, and what they saw left them speechless. "Who did this?" they shouted. "It had to be Abraham," someone said. And so they brought him in for questioning. "Did you do this to our gods?" they asked. And Abraham answered calmly, "Well, the big one over there seemed angry that people were worshiping the others. So maybe he smashed them all himself." "Why don't you ask him?" The people scoffed. "You know these idols can't talk?" And Abraham replied, "Then why do you worship something that can't speak, can't move, can't even protect itself?" The trial before the tyrant. When Nimrod arrived in Urfa, conquering parts of southern Anatolia and Mesopotamia, he heard complaints from city leaders about a young man named Abraham, a rebel who refused to worship idols and had destroyed their sacred statues. Nimrod summoned him. He tried to reason with Abraham, just like it's described in the Quran. But when words failed, Nimrod lost his temper. God had given Nimrod power, but he used it to defy the truth. Abraham said to him, "My Lord is the one who gives life and causes death." And Nimrod snapped back, "So do I. I can spare a man, or have him executed." Then Abraham challenged him again. "Well, God brings the sun from the east. Why don't you bring it from the west?" Nimrod stood silent. He had no answer. And the Quran says, "So the disbeliever was left speechless, for God does not guide the unjust. The fire of vengeance furious." Nimrod gathered his advisers to discuss punishment. A wretched man named Hanun stood up and said, "Burn him alive in the biggest fire we can make." The idea was accepted. Wood was collected for days, enough to burn for an entire month. The ignorant and foolish masses joined in eagerly. "Help us destroy the man who insulted our gods," they shouted. The wood was piled high, like a mountain. The flames reached the sky. Birds couldn't even fly above it. The heat was too intense. And when everything was ready, the people gathered around the inferno. Abraham was brought forward, in chains, hands tied, feet shackled. But even then he showed no fear. He stood there, the friend of God, calm and patient, full of faith and complete trust. His heart was unshaken. Not a single trace of fear crossed his face. The angels begged to help. As Nimrod and his men debated how to throw Abraham into the fire, they eventually decided to use a giant catapult. The angels in the heavens were stunned. They cried out to God, "O Lord, Abraham, your most faithful servant, the one who never forgets you, is about to be thrown into fire. Please, let us help him." With God's permission, one angel came to Abraham and said, "The winds have been placed under my control. If you allow me, I'll blow this fire away." Another said, "I've been given the power of water. I can flood the fire and put it out instantly." A third said, "Earth is under my command. I can swallow the fire whole." But Abraham looked at them and replied, "Don't come between me and my Lord. Whatever he wills, I accept. If he saves me, it's his mercy. If he lets me burn, it's because of my own shortcomings. Either way, I trust him." And then, as he was being tied to the catapult, Abraham calmly said, "God is enough for me. He is the best of protectors." According to the companion Abdullah ibn Abbas, may God be pleased with him, these were the exact words Abraham spoke before being launched into the fire. And centuries later, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, would say, "When the disbelievers gathered against the Muslims, and someone warned us saying, 'They are too many for you,' we only became stronger in faith. We said, 'God is enough for us, and he is the best protector.'" Gabriel's offer. As Abraham stood at the edge of the fire, the angel Gabriel came to him. He asked, "Do you have any request?" Abraham replied, "Yes, but not from you." Gabriel was stunned. "Then why don't you ask Allah for help?" he said. Abraham answered, "He already knows my situation. Who commands the fire? Who gave it the power to burn? Only Allah." God was so pleased by Abraham's unwavering faith, even in the face of death, that he praised him in the Quran as a man true to his word and loyal to his covenant. When Abraham was told, "Submit to your Lord," he responded instantly, "I submit myself entirely to the Lord of the worlds." The fire turns cool, so with the fire roaring like a monster, and the crowd gathered in excitement, Abraham was launched into the flames. But God did not abandon his prophet. the one who created all things, the one who commands all things, gave a single order to the fire. "O fire, be cool and safe for Abraham." And just like that, the fire lost its heat. It became peaceful. It could no longer harm the prophet. Abraham emerged from the flames unharmed, untouched. God says in the Quran, they planned to harm him, but we made them the losers. Exile and divine justice. After this, God commanded Abraham to leave the land of Mesopotamia, the land of Nimrod, because a terrible punishment was coming. Soon after, the once powerful land of Nimrod fell. He vanished without a trace, and his kingdom came under the control of the Akkadian Empire. The story of Abraham and Nimrod is told in both Jewish and Islamic traditions. God's messengers even said to Abraham, "O Abraham, stop pleading for that people. Your Lord's judgment has already come upon them. A punishment is on its way, one that cannot be stopped." Abraham and his father. One day Abraham turned to his father and said, "Dear father, why do you worship something that can't see, can't hear, and can't help you at all? Knowledge has come to me that hasn't reached you. Please follow me, and I'll guide you to the straight path. Father, don't worship Satan. He has disobeyed the most merciful. I'm afraid for you. I fear you may face God's wrath." But his father replied angrily, "Are you turning away from my gods, Abraham? If you don't stop, I swear I'll have you stoned. Get away from me and don't come back." So Abraham calmly replied, "Peace be with you. I will ask my Lord to forgive you. He has always been kind to me, but as of now, I distance myself from you and from everything you worship besides God. I will turn to my Lord, and I pray he will not reject me." The blessings of a prophet. And when Abraham turned away from his people and their false gods, God gave him Isaac and Jacob. He made them both prophets. He showered them with mercy and honored them with the praise they truly deserved. The fall of the Chaldeans and the death of Nimrod. One day, Nimrod arrogantly asked, "Where is Abraham's God? If I ever meet him, I'll destroy him." He laughed and said, "I rule the earth. Let Abraham's God rule the skies." So Nimrod came up with a wild plan. "I will attack the heavens," he said. He built a wooden box, tied 4 giant eagles to its corners, and let them carry him into the sky. When he thought he had reached high enough, he shot an arrow toward the sky. It fell back down, stained with blood. Nimrod grinned. He thought he had wounded God. Later, he shouted to Abraham, "Call your God. Let him bring his army. I'll fight him with mine." Then one day, as Abraham walked toward him alone, Nimrod looked around and scoffed, "This? I gathered my whole army. For one man?" He sneered and mocked him. "Where's your God now? Where's your army?" Abraham calmly replied, "Wait, it's coming." And soon it did. The army of mosquitoes. Suddenly, a dark cloud appeared on the horizon. It wasn't a storm. It wasn't smoke. It was an army of mosquitoes, sent by God. The sky turned black. No one could see a thing. The insects swarmed Nimrod's army, biting, stinging, eating flesh down to the bone. The soldiers screamed in pain. They couldn't fight back. They couldn't even open their eyes. Nimrod panicked. He turned and ran, straight to his palace. He slammed the doors shut and locked them behind him. But it was no use. A single, crippled mosquito, just one tiny fly, slipped through a crack in the door. It flew straight into Nimrod's nose and up into his brain. It buzzed and screamed inside his skull, causing unbearable pain. Nimrod smashed his head against the walls. Nothing worked, so he hired workers to hit him with hammers and promised to pay more to whoever hit the hardest. For years, the mighty king was beaten, not by warriors, not by armies, but by the buzzing wings of a single insect. God increased his pain day by day, until finally his skull shattered from a heavy blow, and the arrogant king who once challenged God died in the most humiliating way possible. As the Quran says, "They plotted against Abraham, but we made them the losers." Nimrod, the tyrant who burned a prophet and dared to fight the Almighty, was destroyed by the smallest of God's creations. His people, who lived in pride and cruelty, were reduced to dust, their blood drained by insects, their story left behind as a warning for all of humanity. A king who ruled for 400 years but was remembered for how tragically, how foolishly it all ended. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video, right here on True Story Archives.